until her move changed everything. "Get into my cabin, it's freezing outside," said the lonely cowboy. The cowboy had lived alone in the mountains for so long that even he had forgotten when the silence first became normal. His small wooden cabin sat far from the main road, surrounded by tall pine trees and endless white land in winter. Snow covered everything for months, making the world quiet and heavy. He woke up every morning before sunrise, made coffee on an old stove, and stared out the window at the frozen land. There was no one waiting for him, no voices calling his name. Just the wind, the snow, and the slow passing of time. People in the nearest town barely remembered him. Some said he chose this life because he liked being alone. Others believed he was running from something. The truth was simpler. Years ago, life had hurt him deeply, and instead of fighting the pain, he walked away from people. The mountains never asked questions. They never judged. They only demanded strength and patience. That evening, the cold was worse than usual. The sky turned gray early and heavy clouds rolled in, warning of a strong storm. The cowboy finished feeding his horse and was about to head inside when something caught his eye near the narrow road that cut through the snow. At first he thought it was an animal, but then he saw movement. Slow, unsteady movement. Someone was walking, or rather, struggling. He squinted, his heart beating a little faster. No one came up this way during winter, especially not during a storm. He grabbed his coat and stepped closer to the edge of his land. As the wind howled, he finally saw her clearly. It was a woman. This is a push-up unseen. The trap looked thin, not made for mountain winters. Snow clung to her hair and shoulders, and her face was pale. She stopped every few steps, bending forward as if trying to catch her breath. The cowboy felt a strange pull in his chest. He told himself it was none of his business. People passed through sometimes. They always kept moving. But something about her made him uneasy. The storm was getting stronger, and the nearest town was miles away. He took a few steps forward and raised his voice. "Hey!" The sound of his voice cut through the wind. The woman froze. She turned slowly, fear flashing in her eyes when she saw a stranger standing in the snow. "It's okay," he said quickly, holding his hands up to show he meant no harm. He noticed how badly she was shaking. "You can't stay out here. The storm's coming fast." She looked past him, then back down the road, as if trying to decide which direction was safer. Her lips were trembling, and when she spoke, her voice was weak. I didn't know it would be this bad." He walked a little closer, careful not to scare her. "No one does the first time," he said. "This weather can be dangerous." Another strong gust of wind nearly knocked her over. That was when he stopped thinking and spoke from instinct. "Get into my cabin. It's freezing outside." She hesitated. He could see the battle in her eyes, fear against exhaustion, trust against survival. Finally, she nodded, barely able to speak. He took her bag without asking and guided her toward the cabin. The walk felt longer than usual. Snow was already piling up, and the sky darkened quickly. By the time they reached the door, her hands were stiff and red from the cold. Inside, the cabin was small but warm. A fire still burned in the fireplace, casting soft orange light across the room. The woman stood near the door for a moment, as if unsure whether she truly belonged there. The cowboy closed the door behind them, shutting out the storm. "Sit," he said gently, pointing to a chair near the fire. She sat down slowly, holding her hands close to the warmth. He poured water into a kettle and set it on the stove. The cabin felt different already. Less empty. Less silent. After a few minutes, color slowly returned to her face. She looked around, taking in the simple space. The wooden walls, the old furniture, the signs of a life lived quietly. "Thank you," she said softly. "I didn't think anyone lived out here." "I do." There was an awkward pause. The fire crackled between them. Finally, she spoke again. "I just moved here. Today. I thought I could handle it." He nodded. "The mountains don't care what we think we can handle." That made her smile a little, though her eyes still looked tired. He handed her a cup of something warm and watched as she drank carefully. Outside, the storm grew louder. No, snow hit the windows like small stones. The cowboy realized something then. If he hadn't stepped outside at the right moment, she might not have made it through the night. She looked at him again, this time with less fear and more curiosity. "You live here alone?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Long enough." She didn't press further, and he appreciated that. People in town always ask too many questions. She seemed to understand silence. As the hours passed, the storm showed no sign of stopping. Roads would be blocked by morning. The woman stared into the fire, lost in thought. Her move was supposed to be a new beginning, but it had nearly ended before it even started. The cowboy watched her quietly. He didn't know why fate had brought her to his door, only that something had already changed. His cabin, once just a place to survive the cold, now held a story he hadn't expected. Outside, winter tightened its grip. Inside, two strangers sat by the fire, unaware that this single night would quietly reshape both their lives forever. Morning came slowly, as if the storm outside did not want to let go of the night. Thick snow still fell from the sky, covering the windows and blocking the small path that led away from the cabin. Inside, the fire had burned low, but the warmth remained. The cowboy woke before sunrise, as he always did. For a few seconds, he forgot that he was not alone. Then he heard a soft movement near the fireplace. The woman was awake, too. She sat, wrapped in a blanket, staring into the fading fire. Her face looked calmer than the night before, though tired lines still showed beneath her eyes. When she noticed him, she straightened slightly, unsure what to say. "Morning?" he said quietly, not wanting to startle her. "Morning," she replied. Her voice sounded stronger now. He added wood to the fire and put a pan on the stove. The familiar actions helped him feel steady. Cooking for one had been his habit for years, but now he made more without thinking about it. "You slept?" he asked. "A little," she said. "The wind was loud, but I felt safe." Those words stayed with him longer than he expected. As food cooked, she slowly began to speak, as if testing the space between them. She told him her name and explained how she had come from far away, hoping to start over. Life in the city had worn her down. Too many broken promises. Too many days that felt empty even when surrounded by people. When she heard about work opportunities near the mountains, she took the chance, believing change would fix everything. "I didn't plan to walk that road so late," she said. "The bus stopped early. I thought I could make it before dark." The cowboy nodded. "The mountains don't forgive mistakes easily. I'm learning that." After breakfast, he opened the door slightly to look outside. Snow covered everything. The road had disappeared. Travel was impossible. "You'll have to stay," he said. "At least until the storm clears." She hesitated, then nodded. "I understand." The hours passed slowly. With nowhere to go, they filled the time with simple tasks. He showed her where to stack firewood. She helped clean and organize the small space. The work felt natural, like they had done it many times before. The cabin no longer felt like a place of isolation. It felt shared. At one point, she stood by the window, watching the snow fall. "You really live like this every day?" she asked. "Yes." "Doesn't it get lonely?" He thought about lying, but instead told the truth. "Sometimes." She turned to look at him. "Why stay?" "'Cause leaving feels harder." She seemed to understand. Her own past weighed heavily on her, though she did not speak of it fully. Still, the silence between them felt comfortable. As the day went on, they talked more. About small things. About the weather. About animals. About how strange life could be. Every word built a thin bridge between two very different lives. By evening, the storm showed no sign of stopping. The cowboy realized that her presence had changed the rhythm of his world. He listened more, thought less about the past. He even laughed once, surprising himself. She noticed it too. "Thank you," she said quietly as night returned. "Not just for the shelter. For everything." He nodded, unsure how to respond. He had only done what felt right. Still, something inside him had shifted. Outside, the storm continued its slow dance. Inside, warmth grew, not just from the fire, but from the simple connection forming between two strangers who had found each other at exactly the right moment. The third day began with a strange quiet. The storm had not fully ended, but it had softened. Snow still fell, but gently now, like the sky was tired. The cabin felt warmer than before, not just because of the fire, but because it no longer felt empty. The cowboy noticed this as soon as he woke up. He no longer felt the heavy silence pressing on his chest. The woman was already awake. She stood near the window, holding a cup in both hands, watching the slow fall of snow. The early light touched her face, and for the first time since she arrived, she looked peaceful. "Looks calmer," she said without turning. "It won't last," he replied. "But it's a break." She nodded. "I'll take any break I can get." They ate breakfast together again. It felt less awkward now. There were no long pauses, no need to search for words. Conversation flowed easily, like a stream finding its path. She asked him about the animals he cared for, and he spoke more than he usually did. He talked about the horse, about the wild deer that sometimes came close to the cabin, about the quiet beauty of the land.
"You talk about this place like it's alive," she said.
"In some ways it is," he answered. "It listens. It remembers." After they finished eating, she surprised him by asking if she could help outside. He hesitated. The cold was still sharp and the snow was deep, but she looked determined. "I don't want to just sit," she said. "I want to feel useful." He handed her an extra coat and gloves. They stepped outside together. The air was cold and clean, and the world looked untouched. They worked slowly, clearing snow near the door and checking supplies. It was hard work, but it felt good, real. At one point she slipped slightly, and he reached out without thinking, steadying her. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Something passed between them, an understanding, quiet and unspoken. He let go quickly, unsure of himself. As the afternoon passed, clouds thickened again. The break in the storm was ending. They returned inside, both tired but satisfied. Later, as they rested by the fire, she finally spoke about what she had been holding inside. She told him about the life she had left behind, not in details, but in feelings. She spoke of disappointment, of trying again and again only to feel unseen. She admitted she had felt invisible even in crowded places. "I thought moving would fix everything," she said softly. "I didn't know how lost I really was until I almost froze on that road." He listened closely. He didn't interrupt. He knew what it meant to carry pain quietly. "I ran too," he said after a long pause. "From people. From memories." She looked at him with gentle curiosity. "Do you regret it?" He stared into the fire. "Some days. Other days, it's the only way I know how to breathe." Night fell again, and the storm returned with strength. Snow beat against the walls, and the wind howled like it was trying to get inside. The woman looked nervous, but less afraid than before. "We'll be okay," he said. "This cabin's strong." She believed him. As the fire burned low, she wrapped herself in a blanket and sat closer, not touching, but near enough to feel warmth. Added more wood and sat across from her. The space between them felt smaller now, not threatening, just shared. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said quietly. He looked at her, surprised by the honesty. "I don't know what I would have done without this moment," he replied. The words surprised him too. That night, sleep came easier for both of them. Outside, winter still ruled the land. Inside, something deeper was forming. Trust, connection, and the quiet beginning of change. Neither of them knew what the next day would bring, but for the first time in a long while, neither felt alone facing it. The fourth day arrived with light pushing gently through the clouds. The storm had finally loosened its grip. Snow still covered the land in thick layers, but the wind had calmed and the sky looked wider, almost hopeful. The cowboy stepped outside early, testing the air. It was cold, but no longer dangerous. The silence felt different now, not heavy, but calm. When he returned inside, the woman was awake, sitting at the small table. She was writing something on a piece of paper, then stopped when she saw him. "Good news," he said. "The storm's breaking. Roads might open by tomorrow." She nodded, but her smile didn't fully reach her eyes. "I figured." They ate together quietly. For the first time since she arrived, there was a sense that time was moving again. The pause created by the storm was ending, and real life was slowly returning. After breakfast, he suggested they walk a short distance, just to see how things looked. She agreed. They bundled up and stepped outside. The world looked bright under the snow, almost peaceful. Each step made a soft crunch beneath their boots. They didn't walk far. Mostly they stood and looked around. The mountains rose silently in the distance, strong and unmoving. "It's beautiful," she said. "Hard, but beautiful." "That's how it keeps you," he replied. "Shows you beauty so you forget how hard it is." She laughed lightly. "You sound like someone who's been convinced." "Maybe I have." As they walked back, she slowed her steps. "I've been thinking," she said carefully, "about what comes next." He felt his chest tighten but said nothing. "I came here to start over," she continued, "but I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to feel grounded." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "And what does that mean?" "It means I don't know if I should leave as soon as the road clears," she said honestly. "I had plans. But plans change." He looked at her for a long moment. Part of him wanted to tell her to stay. Another part was afraid to ask for anything at all. "You don't owe this place anything," he said finally. "Or me." I know, she said. That's why it's hard. Back inside the cabin, they spent the day preparing for what might come. He checked supplies and fixed small things around the cabin. She helped quietly, folding blankets, cleaning shelves. Each task felt heavier, like it might be the last time they did it together. In the afternoon, she sat by the window again, holding the same paper from earlier. This time, she didn't hide it. I was writing a letter, she said, to myself, something I used to do when I felt lost. Does it help? Sometimes, she said. It reminds me that I've survived worse than a snowstorm. As evening approached, the sky turned soft orange. The cowboy made dinner, and they ate slowly, enjoying each bite. They talked about small memories, her childhood, his early days in the mountains. Nothing heavy, just moments. Later, as the fire burned low, the woman spoke again. You've built a life here, she said, even if it's quiet. He nodded. It's simple. That's what I needed. Do you ever think about changing it? He took a long breath. Change has a way of finding me, even when I'm not looking. That night felt different from the others. There was no fear, no uncertainty about the storm. Instead, there was a quiet awareness that something was ending, even as something else waited to begin. Before going to sleep, she stood near the door, looking back at the cabin. No matter what happens tomorrow, she said softly. This place saved me, he answered just as softly. It gave me something too. Outside, the snow rested peacefully. Inside, two lives stood at a turning point, no longer strangers, not yet certain of the future, but changed forever by the days they shared when the world was frozen still. Morning arrived clear and bright, as if the mountains themselves were ready to turn the page. Sunlight touched the snow and made it shine like quiet hope spread across the land. The cowboy stepped outside and looked toward the road. For the first time in days, he could see it again. The path was still rough, but it was open. Life could move forward now. Inside the cabin, the woman folded the blanket she had used and placed it neatly on the chair. Her movements were slow and thoughtful. She was not rushing. This moment mattered too much. When he came back inside, their eyes met. No words were needed at first. They both understood what this morning meant. The road's open, he said gently. She nodded. I thought it would be. They shared breakfast one last time in the quiet cabin. The fire crackled softly, but the air felt different, lighter yet heavier in another way. Every sound seemed important. Every glance carried meaning. After eating, she picked up her bag. It looked smaller now, as if the weight she had carried before had been left behind. She stood near the door, then turned back to face him. I don't think I was meant to pass through here so quickly, she said. This place slowed me down. It made me listen. He leaned against the table, his voice calm but steady. Sometimes stopping is the only way forward. She smiled at that. You changed me, without trying. He shook his head lightly. You did that yourself. Outside, the cold air was sharp, but no longer cruel. They walked together to the edge of his land, where the road began again. The mountains stood tall behind them, silent witnesses to everything that had happened. She stopped and took a deep breath. I'm not ready to leave the mountains, she said, but I don't think I'm meant to disappear into them either. There's a small town not far from here, she continued. I passed through it before the storm. They need help. Work. I could stay nearby, learn the land, learn myself. His heart beat a little faster. That sounds like a good plan. It is, she said, if you don't mind. I'd like that. They stood there for a moment longer, the wind brushing past them. No promises were made. No future was forced. It was enough to know that paths could run close without crossing too fast. She stepped forward and held out her hand. He took it, firm and warm, grounding. There was comfort in that simple connection. Thank you, she said again. For the cabin, for the fire, for seeing me. He met her gaze. Thank you for reminding me I'm still part of this world. She turned and began walking down the road, then paused and looked back once more. He was still there, watching, not alone anymore. As she disappeared into the distance, the cowboy returned to his cabin. The space felt quiet again, but not empty. He opened the window and let fresh air inside. The silence no longer felt like something to hide in. It felt like something to share. Days passed. Then weeks. Sometimes she came by bringing news from town. Sometimes he rode down to see her. They talked, laughed, and learned each other slowly. No rush, no fear. Her move had changed everything. Not in loud ways, but in steady ones. She found strength in the land. He found connection without losing himself. Two lives continued forward, shaped by a single act of kindness on a freezing night. And in the mountains, the cabin stood quietly, no longer a symbol of loneliness, but of what can happen when one door is opened at exactly the right time.